Now we have some ideas on what should be done in the future. The present situation is worrying, most worrying, I would say. I can only hope that in the future policymakers become wiser, they consider wider models of intervention, of protection, of preservation. The needs of communities which are being eradicated from areas to be flooded should be considered even more strictly. Much has been done in respect to the 60s. In the 60s, it was a humanitarian disaster, you would say, in some cases, such for the Aswan Dam and of the Nubian communities. But situation has improved, of course, but much more needs to be done. Several new settlements are unfavorable. Communities have lost a feeling of belonging. So this should be addressed with greater concern. But what we really hope now is that some systematic study, which has not been carried out thus far, is implemented in evaluating the costs and benefits of dams. Of course, the dam can give immediate relief and gains in terms of energy production, water supply to agricultural areas, and this is, of course, a benefit. But the cost of what is being lost in terms of cultural heritage and potential touristic development, which is lost, and in terms of agricultural production, which gets lost because usually it's the best fields who are being flooded. This should be done with the same standards, not with different standards, which means economical. The nation, the people of the area concerned by projects of new dams should be informed precisely of what we are going to gain and what we are going to lose in economic terms, not just emotionally, because otherwise our arguments are usually dismissed by the needs of development countries especially. And I hope that this policy is implemented at all levels, national levels because the communities are most affected, but also in terms of World Bank institution, for example, which is funding the dams, and similar bodies international. This, I think, is most needed and most promising avenue of research if it will be carried out. While we are talking, dams are being constructed, areas are being flooded more and more, in the Near East especially, which is the area we studied, and elsewhere. We realized not enough is being done now, currently. We should change quickly our sets of standard and routine operations on the field. Better and wider documentation needs to be done. This, of course, is technically viable, very viable. How this can be done? We realized there have been serious lacks in past surveys for several reasons, in many cases completely independently from the efforts of scholars involved. Nowadays, I think we should have a more coordinated effort. There should be more economic incentives for digging as much as possible. I'm now confining myself to archaeological heritage, but of course there are many other kinds of heritage which needs to be addressed, environmental, social, geological, and so on. This, of course, we should have an integral view of how document these areas. They should be completely investigated. And archaeological surveys should not confine themselves to mounds, but to the whole territory. This is basic, it's most important. We should document all the flooded areas, not just the emergence that we see. How can this be done? Well, we need certainly more money from construction bodies. More money should be allocated in projects to this end. So governments should be involved, not just directly supporting national groups, but all groups. And at the same time, the old idea of giving a half of the fines to intervening bodies may be an incentive, because too few nations are responding to appeals. In many cases nowadays, appeals are no more made, and this also is disaster. So there should be more attention in the cultural authorities of the single nations and of international organs towards this. For example, I think that if all expeditions active in one country dedicate, before the start of their work, 1 or 2 weeks of an intensive survey of a sector of the dam, this may just give an immediate benefit. Of course, there should be operational bases ready on the field, provided by governments, but this is technically possible. One should just find the political will. things can be made much better now, quickly, with very simple steps. So we can just hope that this work of ours, measuring and assessing the extent of the damage and of the loss in archaeological terms, but of course there is much more beside that, can show the way, can open a new path in intervention in dam areas.